So, before we get started, I should add, I knew it was gonna happen when the announcement came out last, or Monday night, but yesterday was one of the most chaotic days in American history. It was absolute chaos. And I knew it was going on while we were in class. I knew how bad it would be, but, I kind of want to wait and see. Does anybody know why it was absolute chaos? US government cut off $3 trillion federal from executive order, which has some interesting constitutionality, meaning none. But this was one article. This was in the Montana Free Press, but this cut off. Okay, the judge left it up. Are you in now?
Yeah, I don't know. She said she didn't have to override it.
I bet because whatever, you're in. So the point is, it cut off $3 trillion of government aid. Basically, they froze it. And that's $3 trillion. US economy is about $20 trillion. So $3 trillion just all of a sudden stopped. And if you had a Pell Grant, guaranteed student loan cut off, they've cut off all biomedical research. Like, for example, there's no more research into cancer drugs. I know somebody exceedingly close to mine, to me personally, exceedingly close. Their entire operation of 100 employees might be shut down. And this is a big deal. And they've cut that, the Head Start, which is preschool. About 15% of our funding was cut for a day.
There was another element that already got shut down. That was a separate thing.
That was a separate.
We've already lost one.
And 70% of our nursing homes are paid for through Medicaid, not cut down for a day. And by Monday it could come back. This is a massive shock. And the reason I'm mentioning this is why it's so chaotic. This might be one of the biggest constitutional issues in our history. I don't mean just like a common thing. I mean like one of the biggest constitutional issues ever. Because when the US government was created, the whole thing was Congress makes the laws and the president gets them out. And now the president said yesterday, I'm going to carry that. I'm going to submit. That is a constitutional issue, aka whether it would be a Republican. And that happened yesterday. And that's huge. And we're not talking about whatever, even about the programs that might be cut. We're talking about Constitution, and whether or not it's valid or not. And so this is our entire future. Yesterday was crazy. And on Monday, the temporary order from a judge is over. And who knows what our future will be. And I just want to go on and say that you guys are really living in exciting times. When I was your age, it was so boring and drab. You knew what tomorrow was going to be. It just kind of, and that was kind of, people thought 80s were crazy. They got the 70s were crazy. You guys. It's something you may or may not sell your grandchildren. So we will come back to this, but this is a big deal that directly affects a lot of people. Right now, there's about 100,000 scientists that might lose their cut off research for cancer. That kind of blows my mind. The administration has. Or for that matter, they shut down the suicide hotline for veterans yesterday. They cut everything. I mean, and along with other things, 40% of childbirth is done for everything. This is a big deal. So I don't know what's going to happen. My advice to you is batten down the hatches. Get ready for a storm. You know what I mean by that? Hatches on the side of the ship, you shut them down because waves are coming. So we'll see. Yes, we're already short. Already short. One of the Head Start. It's already shut down. Big deal. So this is just one of them. Yeah. My another nephew of mine, not one of my class, is graduate school. Now it turned out they got it back. Another nephew. I have 38. Yeah.
God, give me this.
No. I have 5.
Who do we lose?
One.
Poor girl.
She's in graduate school too. Okay, so do we get to corporation? We got to this, a legal entity. What is that?
You should see it.
We stopped at
I'm
divided and speculating.
Like 14.
Oh, okay, good.
I guess like.
Did we get right to this? I don't know where this is
Oh,
gonna
we
end.
got to dividend reciprocation. No, it was just a dividend reciprocation. Oh, no. Yep. Every time.
We got right here?
Yep.
So dividend, that's a little piece of the profit. Speculation, that's make money. And what happened is, for example, yesterday, it went through a big wave. I'm checking the stock market right now because we're in what's called a bear market. Yes, it's going down. So we're really in a topsy-turvy market. $3 trillion is a lot of money. That's more than I make in a year. So. So who's in charge? The board of trustees picks someone to run a corporation called the CEO. The CEO might be a stockholder, it might not be. But the chief executive order, and that comes with that Taylorism and Frederick Taylor, that is the person who organized the corporation. It doesn't mean they know anything about what the corporation makes. They know how to organize the money, the resources, that kind of thing. And so a CIA is a CEO, I'm sorry, that's the CIA. The CEO is a paid employee of the corporation. Now, they might also own stock, but they're a paid employee. And see, that's getting to the great advantage. We have the owners here and the corporation here, and they are kind of separate. They are separate, and the separate is called, has anyone ever seen the name of a corporation and it says LLC? Limited Liability Corporation. And this is the great advantage that Belgium came up with for corporations. An investor is only liable for what they invest, for what you invest. How do I put you as just you? But if you invest, so that spreads the risk out. So you get many investors, but also the corporation, it spreads the risk out. Think how dangerous it is to start your own company and you're up for every liability, every debt, every offense you might make, all of it, you're liable if you own it. But for the corporation, it's spread out. But it's even more than that. And if you invest $100 in a company, so you invest $100 in Partridge Incorporated. So I started a corporation, I went through the legal process. You get a contract called a charter. Every state has a little bit different one. I paid the $2,000 and I'm a corporation, Partridge Limited. From Limited Liability Corporation. And all of you invest $100 and Partridge Limited, this will shock you, goes out of business. I know, you're all depressed. You're only out $100. Even if I borrowed $1 billion to start all the great feats that Partridge Limited was going to do, you're not liable for any of those debts. You're only liable for the $100. Who's liable for the $1 billion I borrowed? No, the corporation. The entity's liable. Did you catch that? The corporation is liable. I'm not the corporation. The corporation is an entity. I signed the contract, but now it's owned by stockholders. You're out $100. Who's out the now it's up to $1 trillion. Who's out the $1 billion I borrowed? The bank who loaned the money, right? They made a business decision. And as it turned out, I wasn't very good at money. I made myself CEO and I might have done other stuff with the money. You see the advantage though? Wouldn't that encourage you to invest? Because you start your own business very risky. But if you just invest, because of limited liability, you're only out what you invest. Heck, if you're an investor, couldn't you invest in a bunch of competitors? And so let's say one goes out of business, you're still making money from the ones that survive. It's called hedging your bet. That is the great advantage of corporations. That is the great advantage of limited liability. And think about it. What other great advantage? If I'm running Partridge Limited, I'm not investing or risking my money. I'm risking whose money? Other people's money. And that encourages more innovation. I might be reluctant to jump into that new innovation, that new technology. Think about starting an assembly line. What person do we most associate with assembly lines? Yeah, Ford. That's really risky, isn't it? But if I'm using other people's money, roll the die. So it encourages innovation. It's no coincidence that corporations will lead to some of the greatest innovations in history. Greatest isn't huge. Obviously, some good, some bad, but huge innovation. And not only that, I'll borrow money. If the corporation is borrowing money, they're responsible for the debt. Therefore, I encourage more borrowing, more debt, and you're going to get companies, it's called leverage, which means that you borrowed a lot of money and you basically have leveraged or put up all your assets, like your company. That's collateral. Remember that term, collateral? You can leverage out of the world because it's a corporation. Now, some of you might be asking, why would banks ever loan money to a corporation? If it goes out of business, the corporation has to pay it back, AKA, they can't. Why would a bank loan them money? Because they know that chance for the big hit on the innovation. They might get it big. They might make it big. So it's a business investment. But they come in and think, wow, they're going to make it big on this. Taking a big risk as a bank, but I'm going to make this loan to you. And the bigger the risk, the more interest they can charge. So it's a roll of the dice. And they'll get some assets back, but it's really difficult to do. Your corporations go under. Banks make terrible decisions. And there's another reason banks make loans like this. Does anybody know? Remember, these are what big businesses are doing. They're starting more and more. At the end of the century, now we're dominated by corporations. Even more basic than that. Banks are becoming what kind of business? Corporations themselves. They become corporations. So won't they be encouraged to take more risk? If a bank becomes a corporation, does that make sense? Banks are becoming corporations, so they're taking more risk. If let's say I'm an officer in a bank and I've loaned money to corporations and I get paid by how many loans I make. Because banks make money off the loans. I get paid. And let's say I make a bunch of really risky loans and the bank goes under. I still kept my pay. That's what I said. I still got my money. The bank goes under. Okay, I've got to find a job. I did pretty well. I got a lot of money. It can be abused. It can also encourage innovation. It is amazing operations. One of the reasons why they have a competitive advantage over companies that are singly owned or partnerships. A huge competitive advantage. It also encourages profit taking. Heck, I'm using other people's money. I'm going to build, Partridge Incorporated is going to build a bridge, a rope bridge to the moon. And you all invested in mine because you believe me, right? In fact, that's where people who actually sell these corporations are really good at selling things. It's the abbreviation would be like BS. They're good at that. They sell things. And then people want to make money, so you believe me. Yes, for buying stuff. And then you bought my stock. And what did I do with it? I did everything I could to make this bridge to the moon. But it didn't work. Sorry. And what did I do with the money? I gave the head of the company a big raise, though, because it is such a good job. Who's the head of the company? Me. If the company goes under, I got the money. That's profit taking. That happens all the time. Today it's done by stock buybacks. I'm sorry, by stock buyback and paying back my stock. They pay CEOs stock, and then companies will buy their own stock back, raise the value of stock, and just clean. And then in 2017, there was a massive tax cut for corporations. That was Trump's crowning achievement of his first presidency, and about 80% of that went to stock buybacks. So whoever had stocks, they just choose stock good about it. Elon Musk doesn't have a lot of cash. Let me rephrase that. To our point of view, he has a lot of cash, but he doesn't have $490 billion sitting. He has almost no money. I bet for pure cash, I bet he only has maybe a couple $100. But he has stock value. And what does he do? He just pays up the stock. He did a bunch of stock buybacks with his companies. Stock value goes up. Where does he get his money? He borrows from banks and uses the stock as collateral. And that's how rich people spend money. Why do they do it that way? Anyone know? They don't have to pay taxes. So he probably pays less tax than I do. And I don't know if you know this, he actually has one. If you weren't clear, I just want to finish the story. Then we're like, well, yeah, but. So that's what happens then. So this is good and bad. I mean, this is an amazing operation, but a pretty incredible thing. And then a whole new a financial system was created. Finance became really big business. We're talking banking and a new type of bank, specifically for corporations, called an investment bank, was created. So they're going to loan money to corporations or investors. I put the period there rather awkwardly. If I would have the period, it'd be the word core. And that is a French word for a unit or organization. So that's why I put the period. So you see the Marine Corps. So that's why I did that. But they loan to investors. They have corporations set up. The biggest investment bank in the world, you might have heard of, Goldman Sachs. So you think about banks, so you look down the road, there's like, well, there's 1 million bank buildings in Helena Valley. That's kind of growth rate in the last 20 years. But there's like Stockman's Bank or Valley Bank. You think about those banks, they're called commercial banks. That's where you go keep your savings account or go borrow money, get a loan to buy a car. Commercial banks. Investment banks, corporations. And they found out something really quick. There's more money to be made in the actual finance side than the actual limited liability corporations. You make more money from that. But buying and selling of stocks than actually creating a corporation is difficult. General Motors' most profitable arm of their company is their lending, their financial side, to lend money to people to buy cars. That's actually where they make the most money, which seems very weird. So these are some of the biggest robber barons or new financiers. So that's like Fisk, Gould, Vanderbilt. Excuse me. Need to drink the water. So this allows you to consolidate. This allows you to get big. And the bigger they get, remember, economies of scale. They can control the market. Spread the risk out, get big. And I should add, it's going to take a while. But corporations will have a competitive advantage. So you start seeing corporations becoming more and more dominant by the 1890s, 1900s. But you really see the big proliferation in the early 1900s. Everyone's got to be corporate. If you're a privately owned business, you're a competitive disadvantage. Oh, one more thing. Who pays the taxes for the corporation? The corporation. They are this separate entity created by laws. Is it legal? Better question. Was it legal? Partially back then. Partially. And the reason is this. Remember the founding of the United States. Especially by the 1830s. We begin to consider ourselves somewhat of a democracy. And democracies fear concentrated wealth. That was the whole issue of Andrew Jackson. They fear it. They feared monopolies. Remember the founding of the United States, the Tea Act in the Boston Tea Party. It wasn't the taxes that they protested, it was the monopolies. And every state feared this. And this was before the Civil War, before the 14th Amendment. States operated these on their own. They set up their own laws. And this is what they feared. If we allow for monopolies, they feared this basic element. The wealthy will take over politics, meaning they'll make the rules. They will control everything. And if they make the rules, what do we call a few people in charge? An oligarchy. This comes from ancient Greece. An oligarchy. Another term for it is called plutocracy, and that's a rule by the very wealthy. An oligarchy now is used all the time today because of what's happening now, and it was most certainly happening then. That's what they feared. And so we got to control monopolies. This was the whole essence of Andrew Jackson. And that gets to the complexity of Andrew Jackson. The absolute horror of it being a slaveholder and Indian removal, but also democracy and trying to benefit common man. It's an interesting contradiction that fits with much of America. And so the states limited their size. Every state limited the size of companies. Now, how do they do that? There's lots of ways, but the common denominator is this. Corporations cannot own other corporations. So that limited the size, controlled the monopolies. Now, pre-capitalism, it wasn't that big of a deal, but capitalism has this continuous drive to get bigger and bigger and bigger because of the competitive advantage. And only the biggest can afford the new technology. So we're talking now after the Civil War. So here's a monopoly and controlling all the trust, the workers being left out. Every law, every state passed this. So corporations are looking at that saying, what do we do? The first corporations want to get bigger. So what is their goal? They want to make money, but how do you do that? Once again, it's all about the rules. The rules. Yeah. They want to make the rules or buy out the rule makers. They don't enforce. Make the rules or make their own rules and not be enforced. Buy off give contributions, give stock like the Credit Mobilier, so they don't enforce the rules. And so that is the goal. Now, is this bad? It makes elements of bad, but the point is, it happens everywhere. It is endemic in any system like this. So I guess it's now the job of the people making the rules to make sure this doesn't happen. Well, but that's we know they're going to try. Every place they always do. It's just always. So we got to buy the rules, make the rules, or how do we protect them? Well, first off, they started to nibble at the end, at the edges. Well, the first thing the big companies did is called a pool. And this is as old as there's been a market. This goes back to Ayuk and ancient Turkey back in 2000 BCE. So a bunch of competitors get together, they form a group. It's sometimes called a cartel. Have you ever heard of OPEC? Oil and petroleum exporting countries, that is a cartel. And they come together as competitors and they create they set a price floor. They set a price floor, telling all the competitors, we will not go under this. We won't go under this price, so we won't undercut. So we can all make money. I show one of the first New York subways because that's one of the first places. All the subways in New York were private. One of the reasons why the New York subway system is so weird, because it was all done by private companies who want to try to connect to the most profitable areas, was planned. And they set up a tool saying, hey, we're not going to undercut each other because we all want to make money. But by definition, it's weak because of this very simple reason. Setting a price floor is fraud. And every state to this day bans this. It's fraud. Setting a price is cheating the customers. It is by definition fraud. Do you see the problem? If you come together in a fraudulent group and say, hey, we're going to set the price, what's going to stop one person from saying, I'm going to undercut and drive you out of business? And what do the other members of the pool do? Hey, you violated our illegal price. You violated the law, or you violated our secret agreement that was illegal. What do you say? By definition, they're weak. Pools always flex. Somebody will undermine. I should add, this is why, you know anything about organized crime? So, for example, we're in special topics. We just voted to do 1920s and gangsters. Special topic, sure. And that's organized crime. And where were the big wars, like the big Chicago booze wars to sell booze during Prohibition? They had this secret pool, and one side violated it. Say it again. That was last week. That was for crime. This weekend, 20s culture. And someone violated it, that triggers a war. Does anyone know what's happening in northern Mexico with the Mexican cartels? All the violent actions there they have a pool to set up to try to legally sell drugs. Somebody violates the pool, that's when it goes down. So that's what happened. Their tools. OPEC is really weak, for example. And what is the biggest oil producing country in the world today? They're not a member of OPEC. By far, no one's even close. The US. No one's even close. We produce more, by far, more than we ever have. Right now. So all that talk about us starting to drill more, produce more than anybody, more than we ever have, right now. a heck of climate change. Now, trust. Trust. Trust is another example. Trust, this is a way that, okay, we have all these separate monopolies, different companies. Some are corporations, some aren't corporations. In fact, the big ones are going to become corporations, small ones are still companies. And the big ones are going to create a trust. Literally, they're going to call the, here's one, hey, the Standard Oil Trust. So John D. Rockefeller created Standard Oil Trust. And what they did is they go to competitors and gave them a deal they can't refuse. Hey, join my trust, or we crush you. So basically what it is, all these competitors must turn over their stock or control their company to the trust. And who owns the trust? Standard Oil. So they run their company, or else they're destroyed. And that would become so dominant by the 1880s in the United States. When you said trust, it became synonymous with monopoly. That is why the weird thing of the United States, if these kind of trusts are now gone, they're unnecessary. Our anti-monopoly laws are called antitrust laws, which make no sense anymore because it just doesn't work, but we're stuck with that. So John D. Rockefeller would go to competitors, these smaller companies. And this tries to show the trust taking over everything, not just the oil wells, but the railroads and the government. It's a very clever cartoon. So in Kansas, there was a big oil strike at the turn of the last century in Kansas. I know we don't think about Kansas, big oil producer, but it was right above Oklahoma, right in this area of Kansas. Big oil strike. And Rockefeller went down there and went to every single small little refinery. Not refinery, just a little oil well, just a little rig. You know, these little wells were set up, 1 or 2 wells total. And he would go to each one, send lawyers and say, we got a deal. You turn over your company to the Standard Oil Trust, or we destroy it. We come in, we undercut it. We undermine it. I control the railroads. That's it. Standard Oil controls railroads. You won't let us ship your oil. You won't find a market for it. And you will go under. But that's not it. That's not all. You will lose everything. We'll make sure no banks will loan you money ever again. If you try to start another business, we will crush that too. I'll follow you to wherever you go. Your family wants to do something, I'll crush them. Your children want to do something, we will crush them. We will follow you for the rest of your life. Or join our trust. Anybody want to take the ladder on that? Who would join the trust? And by the way, when I say he would do that, he would do that. He was a cruel, vicious competitor. And so people join. And if you're not, you're destroyed. And you get your stuff in your hands. And then the whole thing about getting the family, yeah, he'd come after you for years. For years. So take over. So you start having these trusts come in. So these trusts are going to become these big combinations of now all these different oil or railroad or whatever it might be. Now the competitions have 2 different styles. And these will become also trust or monopolies. So they're going to be vertical. A vertical trust or vertical monopoly is controlling all the means of production. So this little diagram I stole from somewhere is for meat packing. Control all the ranches, slaughterhouses, control railroads, all the way up to distribution. Top to bottom. You control all. So you don't have to buy from anybody else. You control the entire production. The other one is called horizontal. I know it's hard to see, but you control alike industries. So here's one, you control all the oil refineries. When we think of monopoly, we normally think of horizontal, but both work. I mean, think of what the great competitive advantage. If you're making steel and you control the iron mines, all your competitors, where are they going to get iron? You got it. And you don't have to worry about paying somebody else. Or you make deals with the railroads. Maybe buy their stock, scratch my back, give me what's called a rebate. So some of the most famous examples of this horizontal integration would be John D. Rockefeller. Rockefeller, Standard Oil. And he would control all the oil refineries. So he owned nearly 98% of all the refineries in the United States going into the 20th century. That was before the big oil strikes in Texas, that he wouldn't get those numbers. There's a lot of oil back then, mountains of Pennsylvania, Ohio. That's where he got to start. Cornelius Vanderbilt did it for railroads, the New York Central Railroad. It started with just a little railroad going from basically New York to Albany. And he took control of all these private railroads. So everyone look up here real fast. Think about where all the industry was. New York. That's his railroad. He soon, in his trust, took control of all the railroads on this line. Chicago, St. Louis, Memphis, Philadelphia, and New York. But a profitable railroad. He soon controlled. Jay Gould would do that with the Erie Railroad. Vertical integration, the best example, Swift and meatpacking. He controlled everywhere from the ranches, and it may be direct control or you will sell only to me. Kind of sales. And indirect control, meatpacking. But the most famous of vertical integration would be Andrew Carnegie. Carnegie, right there is Carnegie. That's how you pronounce his name. Carnegie bought into the Bessemer process, knew nothing about steel, just knew it was big. And by 1890, controlled 60% of the steel market. He controlled 80% of the iron. He had deals with every railroad. Not only that he would get special price rebates, but they wouldn't ship his competitive goods. He controlled from the bottom up. He would become the United States' first billionaire. And $1 billion in 1890, and that's about 400 million today. He was so rich, it's hard to comprehend. Let me really phrase that. He would have that in value. And then when JP Morgan bought his stuff for the US Steel, that's when he became a billionaire. We'll come back to the Vanderbilt. Oh, Rockefeller was both. So here's Rockefeller, Standard Oil, and this is showing in vertical, getting the railroads all the way up to the oil. Rockefeller was everywhere. Rockefeller had so much power, it's hard to comprehend. Oh, he would, and he was such a, when I told you about the cruel man, so there were, in these big cities, there's gonna be so many orphans and kids with nothing roaming the streets, just starving to death. Urchins with nothing. But that's normal in big cities. And he would go and he would like toss dimes up in the air to watch them fight for him. That's what he thought was funny. It's one of those things, you almost want to laugh at the same time. What unbelievable cruelty. When he had more money than he could ever spend in his lifetime. So, interlocking directors is another example. Here's JP Morgan. I don't know why we get sometimes this shadowy thing came in there, but JP Morgan was an investment bank. So he's loaning to corporations. I should have put a period there because that's core. Not core. Interlocking directorates. I'm sorry. So I'm recording this for some reason now. The great new improvement on Teams, they put this. I can't get rid of it. Can't get rid of that. So he's loaning to corporations. I think you might see his problem. He doesn't get his money back if the corporation dies. And so what he does is twofold. They're all in competition. He's going to spread them out. He's going to make loans and give them to competitors. Why just loan to one railroad when you loan to 5 or 6 railroads that are competing? If one goes under, he still gets money back from everybody else. That's kind of like what people do who play the stock market. So he wanted to make sure that they didn't do anything stupid, either make bad business decisions or just undercut each other too much. So he said, I'll give you your loan, put my lawyers, and they were almost all lawyers, put my lawyers on your board of directors. They wouldn't have control, but he would have a voice on these competitors. So think about JP Morgan sit back there and all these companies, New York Central, Pennsylvania, Erie Railroad, cutthroat competition. And he has his people on the board of directors. So he could say, tap down stupid things or risky things and work together. So it can control cutthroat competition. So it's not quite a pool, but it's going to function like a pool. I should add, like Germany and Japan, that is in their constitution. When a corporation reaches a certain size, in Germany, for example, they must have somebody from their central bank, equivalent of our Federal Reserve, on their board of directors to make sure that the company understands that it's that big, it has a responsibility to all people of Germany to not make risky decisions. Same deal, they have somebody from their labor unions too, to make sure that workers are well treated. We have nothing the equivalent of that here. This was for private industry. Did it work for him? Oh, yeah. They all had a yacht. That's JP Morgan. His bank would start here in the 1880s, and JP Morgan is one of the biggest banks in the world. And Brad, one more thing, holding company. Holding company. This will be the innovation in business practices that will change. So tomorrow we'll do that. Sound good? Oh, reading assignment. Would you like a reading assignment? No, please. 847 to 878, but it's due on Monday. I'm giving you a few pages, but giving you days till Monday. Sound good? 847 to 878. So on Teams, I originally put it on Friday, and I realized, oh my God, that's way too many pages. Should we just do it tomorrow so you guys can show off? Monday. I normally don't like doing it on Monday, but we'll do it on Monday. I do gotta say, they know how to get people to like stuff like that. It tastes good. They do, not to all humans, but to a lot. Sounds good? You ready? Which one's your vote?
I have a
Yeah.
question for history.
I've been.
The other trade, so I just checked.
Oh, I thought it didn't really matter. Well, I had it. I think. I'm just surprised that. We did it from your side. That's all we did. I'm not.
Kelly.
How do we place like?
Well, we want to assassinate, just like we want to exist and.
Whoa, Kristen, you can't say this.
There's a few that have 5 votes in one. And one thing we have to do is a lot. We have to take time for more serious.
But you stick my head on the lead now.
I go up.
There was like mixed race.
I would want to stop and be like, yeah, also so.
All your.
Yeah, you might.
That's great. But.
Don't decide we can stay. Huh?
Where are you on that?
Check this out.
You say you're to where it said.
Yeah, that's done.
Yes, I did. That's.
Yeah.
Oh.
What do you got?
Quiz! Half sheet of paper! Half sheet of paper! Half sheet of paper. Hey, how many questions would you like? 9, let's do 9. Yeah, we're doing 9, people.
I did not.
I'm here for you. Cleaning up your math. You skipped yesterday. You skipped yesterday. Thank you. No, don't let it get away with this. Oh, you're too busy. What are you telling all these people? Thank you. I'll tell you what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna leave for 3 minutes. Just take care of it. Oh, the camera's still on. Better shut that off. Oh, yeah, you're in, San Diego, is that right?
Told them.
Yeah, we have people.
You got your start.
Half sheet of paper, 1 to 9. Let me shut off the camera. Say goodbye to our viewing audience. I forgot to shut off the camera.